Welcome to another Wicked Web Wednesdays with me, Chris Davidson, brought to you by Speaker Business Builder. Wicked Web Wednesdays is the home on the web for members of the CATS community, consultants, authors, trainers and speakers to find good information about making better use of the web. Today's topic, Google's recent announcement about Core Web Vitals. Before we dive into that, please make sure that you have subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss out on all the goodies that come up every week from Wicked Web Wednesdays. Okay, let's get going. Google's Core Web Vitals. What do we know about it? What Google is telling us is that the Core Web Vitals are real-world metrics that are user-centric and that they are used to quantify the user experience. What does that actually mean? Well, how do Google look at the page experience right now, today? The answer is these four areas. They want the page experience to be mobile friendly. They want it to provide safe browsing, they want it to be HTTPS, and they don't want any intrusive adverts when the page is being downloaded. That's the basic measurement that Google is looking at nowadays. Now they're going to add to this with the Core Web Vitals. And I have to say that I'm very, very excited about this announcement. It's a really positive announcement, and I hope to be able to illustrate that to you throughout this video. What Google is adding in the Core Web Vitals are three more areas to the page experience: loading, interactivity, and visual stability. Now, the point about this is that, and you'll see this as we go through, they're being very, very, very specific in these three areas, which is great, because now we finally know exactly what it is that we have to do as web designers, as engineers, to produce really, really good websites that Google is going to be very, very happy about. Now, before we go any further, let's say that Google's Core Web Vitals are always going to be a mid-ranking factor. That's what Google call them. So the primary purpose of Google is always going to be to satisfy the user search request. That's going to be the primary thing that Google wants to do, and that's where we should be putting all of our effort in, and that's why, keyword research and all the rest of it is so important and so useful. However, we shouldn't dismiss these mid-ranking factors because they are going to make a difference, and Google is now telling us that they're going to make a difference. So, loading, interactivity, and visual stability. Let's look at those one by one and see what they're about and see what the difference is. Loading is, as you might have guessed, it's all about load speed. And this is really useful because finally Google is confirming clearly that load speed is a ranking factor. And not only that, they're giving us some very precise data upon which we can form a view on that. So Google has said the following. They've identified this thing called the largest contentful paint. Now let's just think about measuring load speed for a minute. How would you do that? We all know from watching websites load that they don't just appear on the screen in a flash, in an instant. So if you were going to measure load speed, are you going to measure it from the time that the very first bit of content arrives? Or are you going to measure it until the very last bit of content arrives? Are you going to say, well, we'll take an average, and when 60% of the page is loaded, we'll call that the load time? So you have to have a definition to work by. And Google has defined this thing called the largest contentful paint. Let's not worry too much about the precise definition of that. It is a precise definition, we know what it is. But the point they're making here is that this thing that's called the largest contentful paint should have happened within 2.5 seconds of the page load starting. So once Google detects the page load starting, 2.5 seconds after that, you should have the largest contentful paint on the screen. And we can kind of intuitively understand what the largest contentful paint would be. So this is a very clear indication to us that Google is very, very clearly saying, load speed, it's really important, folks, get on it. Interactivity, what's that all about? This notion of interactivity. Well, if loading is about the website coming down to you, there's a sense in which you could say interactivity is a little bit sort of the other way around. If you click on a button on a web page, or you click on a menu option, then Google's saying, okay, so we want to see some response there. Now, when you click on a button on a website, or you click on a menu item, there is a period of time between you clicking on that button and the browser that is displaying the website being able to do something with that click. See what I'm saying? And what Google is telling us is that this is a measure of the interactivity, and what they're telling us is that that time period, which they are calling the first input delay, they want it to be less than 100 milliseconds. Let's be clear, that's not saying your whole website has to have responded within 100 milliseconds. It's saying that when somebody clicks on a button, clicks on a menu item, the time between that button being clicked and the browser being able to deal with it has to be less than 100 milliseconds. We've got some really good, tight engineering data here from Google. It's a very, very positive announcement. Visual stability, what's that all about? I'm sure we've all experienced that. You're watching a website downloading and you already see the button that you know you want to click. And so you're sort of moving your mouse, or you're moving your finger on the screen to click that button, and you're just going to click it when another bit of the page arrives and that button moves somewhere else on the screen, and before you know it, you've clicked the wrong bit of the screen. You've clicked the wrong button. Got to go back and start again. That's an example of visual instability. So what Google is saying with visual stability is that they're saying, okay, we're going to add all of this jiggery-pokery up, all this moving around the screen that goes on when pages get loaded, and we're going to call that the cumulative layout shift, all that messing around that goes on when data arrives. We're going to define a thing called the cumulative layout shift, and we want the cumulative layout shift to be less than 0.1, period. So they want something to be nice and stable when it's loading. This is great data. This is great for web designers, architects, engineers, programmers. We know what we're dealing with here. And this is really, really useful to us. Now, what's it got to do with you, the owner of a website? Well, when does all this come into play? That's what you need to know. And again, there's more good news for you here. By the time this video gets published, it'll be October 2020, and we all know what's going on in the world. You don't need me to remind you of that. And so Google has said, look, we know what's going on, so we're going to give people some extra time. First thing is, Google's core Web Vitals will be implemented in 2021. So it's nothing that's going to happen immediately. And they further said that we're going to give webmasters a very clear 6 months notice before anything happens. So we're going to get plenty of notice and plenty of time to deal with this. That's from an engineering perspective. Now, for you as a website owner, what should you be doing? Well, I would encourage you, please, to go and look at your website. In desktop, look at it in different browsers. Go and look at it on the mobile version, look at it on Android, look at it on Apple machines. Get as much data as you can about your website, even if you just do it qualitatively. Get as much data as you can on your website, particularly with respect to load speed. Have you got a website that loads really quickly? And the reason why I'm kind of looking at you a little bit like this is I know from researching thousands of speaker websites worldwide, a lot of them don't load quickly, okay? So this is something to look at. If you look at it and you think, ooh, maybe there's something I ought to be thinking about here. First point, don't panic. Number one, we have time. We're going to know when this hits us. Number two, go back to what I said at the beginning. The core web vitals are mid-ranking factors. So you're not going to suddenly find yourself disbarred from Google or something like that. They're mid-ranking factors. The primary purpose of Google is to answer the user's search request. And if you're doing a good job of that, then thumbs up, you're absolutely doing the right thing. But we shouldn't ignore these mid-ranking factors. They are going to have an impact. So if you have got a website that you think, yeah, it could do with a little bit of a speeding up this, then the question that I would then ask you to consider is, well, okay, is the rest of my site absolutely tickety-boo and is exactly what I want? So the only issue is an engineering issue of can we deal with these things when we have to deal with them? Or actually, now that I'm looking at the website, yeah, if we're going to have to do some of this work here, then really, I should be making it part of a bigger project. I should be incorporating maybe some new product information. If I'm doing that, then maybe I need to look at the bit that deals with my market and how I explain the niche, and then I'll probably need some new lead magnets and might need to reorganize the pages a bit. And you can see where I'm going. So if you think that you genuinely might have a website rebuilding project on your hands, having just looked at it from this kind of perspective, then that's something to start planning now, so that when you come into the whole rebuild in 2021, then all of this can be taken account of in the same project. That's the point I want to draw to your attention. So Google's Core Web Vitals is very good news for us. It's a terrific announcement. It gives us real meat to get our teeth stuck into. It explains Google's view of life. They've updated some of their tools which will help people like us build better websites for you. So it's very, very, very positive, and it's something that we should welcome with open arms. It's keeping us all honest, keeping us on the straight and narrow, and ultimately it's helping us service our clients better. So it's good news. It's good news. It's a really terrific announcement. That's it for this week, folks. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, you find this useful, then please share the link, share it with your colleagues, share it with your friends. The objective of Wicked Web Wednesdays is just to promote good web practice. That's what this is all about. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Bye now.